Hey guys, Robbie here from CrossFit South Bend. Today we're going to do a very basic intro to calculating your macros. So macros have become a very popular topic. It's something I get a question about all the time. What are they? How do I calculate them? I've done a video in the past about what macros are, and I will link to that so you guys can watch that. But today we're going to do a very basic intro to calculating macros. So one thing I want to say up front is that this is a super basic intro, super basic, meaning that, there are way more advanced ways to slice your macros. We can get way more in depth, but I just wanted to give you a basic sense of what this all looks like. Now, in order to, calculate your macros, there are ways to do it without all of these numbers, but this is going to be one of the most accurate ways to do it if you have all of these numbers with you. One of the best ways we found to get these numbers is with an in-body scan. So we have an in-body body fat scanner here at the gym, and that gives you not just your weight, obviously, but it gives you your lean body mass, the amount of non-fat things in your body, and your basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of bare minimum of calories that your body needs just to breathe on a daily basis and just maintain basic functions, not even counting working out. And then this BMR will allow you to calculate your total daily energy expenditure based on your activity level. So if you have an in-body scan, it'll just tell you all this. And if you don't have one, you can come, if you're local, you can come get one from us, or if you're somewhere else, you can check out to see if there's an in-body around you. Even if you don't have an in-body scan, you can find out these basic numbers online based on your weight. It's not gonna be quite as accurate, but it'll be pretty close. So let's just do a brief overview of what these top numbers mean, why we use them, and then we'll get to actually breaking down the macros, okay? Okay, so the first thing that everyone's gonna have access to is weight. So let's just assume, we're dealing with a 200-pound male. The next thing we would need from there is their lean body mass. This is an important number for a couple reasons. This allows you to get a rough sense of how much protein you need on a daily basis. Now, it's not the end-all and be-all as a measurement. There are different ways to measure protein needs, but this is a good start. Also allows you to calculate the basal metabolic rate, which again is that bare minimum amount of calories you need on a daily basis. So how do you figure out lean body mass? Well, if you know your weight and you know how much body fat mass you have, just subtract the body fat mass from the weight and you get lean body mass. So this person is a 200-pound person with 50 pounds of fat. That's why we've got the lean body mass of 150 pounds. Now let's just say hypothetically that their BMR based on that 150 pounds is going to be 1,610 calories. Now, this is just a number that's going to help make the math easier over here, but it can be a number of different things depending on how muscular the person is. Someone weighing 200 pounds could have a 1,900 calorie basal metabolic rate, or even lower, just depending on how muscular they are. But we've got that BMR. Now again, this is that bare minimum amount of calories that you need on a daily basis to maintain bodily functions and just breathe. Now, how do you get from that basal metabolic rate to your total daily energy expenditure? This is the important number for calorie intake. So there's a series of multiplication factors that you can use depending on your activity levels to figure out how to get from this to this. For the overwhelming majority of people we work with, people who do CrossFit here or just generally work out, that multiplication factor is 1.55. This is for people who work out 3 to 4 times a week. It's a pretty good approximation for most people. If you were only walking, it'd be 1.2. If you're a games athlete or an elite athlete, you're probably not watching this video. But if you were to be, then we'd be talking higher, like 1.9, sometimes even as high as 2. But for most people, you multiply the BMR times 1.55, and that yields the total daily energy expenditure. So for this particular person, the total daily energy expenditure is going to be 2,500 calories a day. This is how many calories this person is going to need to maintain this current weight and this amount of muscle. This isn't talking about weight loss. This isn't talking about fat loss. It isn't talking about mass gain. It's just talking about maintaining. Now, we'll do videos in the future about probably weight loss, fat loss, and mass gain, size gain, things like that. But for right now, we're just talking about the amount necessary to maintain this. Let's assume this is an athlete. They just want to maintain their size and be healthy and perform. That's the amount of calories they would need. So from there are a lot of different ways to slice your macros. Keto says, well, moderate protein, super low carb, and super high fat. Something like a Renaissance periodization is a little bit higher on the protein side, definitely a bit higher on the carb side, and much lower on the fat side. If it fits your macros, this is in kind of a similar mold. So there are lots of different ways to split this up. We're going to show you just a super basic way initially for most people to get started. And the truth of the matter here is, guys, if you don't even have a sense of what your calories are and you've never even done MyFitnessPal before, you don't need to worry about macro jujitsu, okay? Just start with the basics. Like, get a month or two of just the basics under your belt, and then you can worry about keto jujitsu or Renaissance periodization jujitsu. Like, that isn't stuff to worry about if you haven't even done the basics to start. So just worry about the basics right now. So we've got 2,500 calories listed down here. So how do we get to 2,500 total calories? Well, a good place to start for most people, that again, it's just a basic guideline, is protein matching your lean body mass in grams. So if your lean body mass is 150 pounds, then that means, roughly speaking, at a minimum, you should be eating 150 grams of protein a day. What is that in human food? Well, there's about 50 grams of protein in an 8-ounce serving of animal protein, so about 3 8-ounce servings a day, roughly speaking. Depends on if it's a leaner protein or fatty or cut, but roughly speaking, 3 8-ounce servings a day would get you 150 grams of protein. There are 4 calories per gram of protein, which means that you would be getting 600 total calories of protein from this 150 grams, and that would be roughly 24%, roughly a quarter of that 2,500 calories. Carbs. Boy, does this one really depend. It depends so much on activity level, depends on the person. Some people do better high carb, low fat. Some people do better low carb, high fat. As a general rule, if someone's doing 3 to 4 times of CrossFit a week, it depends. If they're doing more strength stuff and less in the way of go, then maybe closer to 75 to 100. If they're doing a little bit more go, then 150. I'm just making the math easy here just as a starting point, saying match the carb amount to the protein amount. Again, there's just a starting point for most people. That what's great about this is you try this out, something like this as a starting point, and you see what works. You see if this is good for you, and if it's good, stick with it. If it's not, then you adjust. So 150 grams of carbs. Again, there are 4 calories per gram of carbs, just like there are for protein, which means 600 calories for carbs, which would be 24%, roughly a quarter again, of how many of your total calories. And then the remainder comes from fat. So 600 plus 600 equals 1,200, minus 2,500 equals 1,300. So this is the remaining amount that we need to get to with our total calories. So there are 9 calories per gram of fat. This is one of the reasons why fat for a long time was demonized, because there is, more than double the amount of calories per gram of fat than there are of protein and carbs. We've talked about in other videos why this is problematic, but just keep in mind when calculating your macros, there are 9 calories per gram of fat. So 1,300 calories divided by 9 is roughly 144, technically 144.4, so 144 grams. So this macro split ends up being pretty even, right? So it's saying 150, 150, 144 in terms of gram amounts. In terms of percentages, of course, it's about a quarter, and then about 50%. So, and the reason for that discrepancy is the fact that there's 9 calories per gram of fat. So this is a good place to start. And again, with meal timing and proportioning things in a meal, there are lots of different ways to slice it, but a good place to start with this is 50-50-50, roughly. Not accounting for that 144 there. This can be slightly off, but 50-50-50, right? So 50 grams of protein in a meal, 8-ounce serving. 50 grams of carbs, Maybe a white potato or a sweet potato and some non-starchy vegetable and maybe a little bit of fruit. Depends on how much you're having of each, but most of those carbs should come from the starchy vegetable, like a white potato or a sweet potato or plantain or white rice if you're doing white rice, things like that, which is not a vegetable but can be used as a carb. And then fat, 144 grams, so 50 grams here. Now the important thing to remember here is that your fat is going to come from two different places when you're composing a meal. Almost certainly some of your protein will have fat in it. If it's ground beef, if it's salmon, it's gonna have some fat. So some of that fat goes to composing that gram amount right there. But the other fat is gonna come from maybe the oil you use to roast your veggies in, or the oil you use to saute your meat in, or something to that effect, or maybe some macadamia nuts or hazelnuts. But typically it'll be oils for most people if you're cooking stuff. So, doing a 50-50-50 split. Again, there are so many different ways to slice. Well, have fewer carbs in the morning and more carbs at night and all these different things. But what I tell people over and over again is if you haven't even done a month of the basics, don't worry about that jujitsu stuff. Just worry about the basics. So hopefully now you've got a really good sense of just the basics of calculating macros. And again, just like we say food quality first before we worry about food quantity and macros, with macros we say just get the basics in line first of just even a month or 2 months of just like, are you even counting your calories? Are you even splitting things evenly? And then you can start to worry about the more advanced topics like meal timing and high carb, low fat, and all these different things. All right, guys, so thanks so much for tuning in today.